Hello, kindergarten friends and families. Happy Tuesday. Today I'm coming to you with a reading lesson. We are going to be comparing a story to a poem. So before I do that, I just want to give you a brief description on what poetry or a poem is and also what a story is. So poem or poetry is a type of literature or artistic writing that attempts to stir a reader's imagination or emotions. It's done by arranging the language for its meaning, sound, which is where we hear the rhyming, and rhythm. When we think of poems, we often notice the structures of the writing. The words in a poem are arranged in lines and groups of lines, and these are called stanzas. So you're going to see that today in the poem that I read to you, all right? And a story, when authors write a story, they also have a certain structure to their writing, and that structure is known as story structure. And that has the parts to the story. So we've already gone over some lessons on talking about the reading. So we talk about those elements in a story. Those are the character, the setting, the problem, the events in the story, and the solution. All right, so that's just a little bit of a background on what a poem is and what a story is. So I'm going to start now by reading the poem to you. I'm going to take you today through the similarities of the poem and the story. Next week, Ms. Miller is going to pull out the differences between both this poem and the story that you hear today. Okay? All right. So we've been doing a lot in our classroom and our Zoom sessions. We've been talking about the caterpillar, the life cycle of a butterfly. So I found this poem and I thought, what a great continuation of that lesson or that concept. And so this is called Caterpillars. So I want you to pay attention to the words. I want you to see if you can pick out some of that structure that we talked about, whether you hear the sound of that rhyme, all right? Do you hear a word more than once in there? And see if you can see how it's arranged. Are there any pictures? Or are you using your imagination and visualization to support the meaning of the poem? Okay? So it says, what do caterpillars do? Nothing much but chew and chew. What do caterpillars know? Nothing much but how to grow. They just eat what by and by will make them be a butterfly. So I want you to see if you can think of, did you hear some rhyming words in this poem, right? And so we know that rhyming words sound the same at the end, all right? So here we have do, chew, okay? We have know, grow. We have by, and we have butterfly. So the fly part at the end of the word butterfly rhymes with the word by. All right? Okay? So I want you to keep that poem, the idea of the poem, the picture that you have in your mind. I want you to picture that as I go through the story. The story that we have today is one that we know. It's one that I've read recently to my group through a video check-in. So it is The Very Hungry Caterpillar. So, and it's by Eric Carle. So I'm just going to do a picture walk just because I know that a lot of us are familiar and have just listened to the story. So see if you can pick out some similarities of what you just heard in the poem, of what a caterpillar does. See if you can find some similarities in our story today, all right? So again, our story is called The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. All right. So here, right, it starts off the story with the egg on the leaf. And then out from the egg came a caterpillar. Okay? And he started to look for some food. So remember, he chewed through an apple. He chewed through 2 pears. He chewed through 3 plums. He chewed through 4 strawberries. He chewed through 5 oranges. And then on Saturday, remember, he ate through a piece of cake, an ice cream cone, a pickle, a slice of cheese, a salami, a lollipop, 1 piece of cherry pie, 1 sausage, 1 cupcake, and 1 slice of watermelon. Okay? And remember, that night he had a bellyache, so the next day he ate through 1 green leaf, and he felt much better. And remember, he was no longer hungry, and he wasn't little. He was a big, fat caterpillar. And then remember, he made himself into the chrysalis, and then he nibbled his way out and pushed his way out, and then he became a beautiful butterfly. All right? So we're going to use something called a Venn diagram. And I know that some of us have shown our kids what that might look like. I thought I would use plates today as a visual to help support that. So what I did was I took, and I have 2 paper plates. I have the word poem on one. I have the word story on the other. And then, so this is where the differences would be. But when we put them together in the middle, there's always some common areas, okay? So that's what I'm going to do with you today. We're going to talk about those similarities in our story. So I'm going to grab my paper and my marker. Okay. And I'm going to write on my paper, okay? So similar. So I'm going to give you a moment to think about, what were some similarities in our poem and in our story? Okay, so they were both about caterpillars, right? So that's something that was similar. So I'm going to write up here, both about caterpillars. Okay. All right, what's something else that you thought might have been a little similar in our poem and our story? So they ate, right? The caterpillars were eating. Okay. So what's something else that you think you might remember from our poem and our story that were similar? So at the very end, right, they talked about how the caterpillar became a butterfly, right? So let's go over the similarities that we found today in our poem and in our story. So both were about caterpillars. Caterpillars were eating in both the poem and in the story. And in both the poem and in the story, the caterpillar became a butterfly. Okay? So again, next week Ms. Miller's going to be talking to you about the differences, all right, between the story and the poem. And so today we talked about the similarities. So I hope you enjoyed today's lesson about the difference between a story and a poem. And so I hope you enjoy next week's lesson with Ms. Miller. And have a great day and happy learning. Take care. Bye.